Welcome to the Sleepy G Show. I'm your host for your most. My name is Gomez, and today I do have a very, very special guest. She is the hit author of the book "Sit Behind the Nets," and I'll tell you, I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but I know from hearing from everybody, reading some of the dialogue, and listening it to some other podcasts, it is true amazing book. I have to welcome Jana Brody. Jana, how are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm getting the word out, and thanks to people like you, it's keeping the legacy going.
Well, I gotta admit, it was kind of when you emailed our studio, as I call it, our studios, our website, and it really connected with me because I love baseball. I played it when I was a kid. Stopped when I was in high school because I ended up being a better football player. So I watched the Yankees growing up, but I loved all the different teams. As like I was saying before, I do have a little hat collection going behind me, and I do have probably one of your teams right here because I do have friends who live out that way. They always try to convert me back to LA, but I love the colors, but I was always a Yankee fan at heart, but the sports overall, the teams are always something I always look forward to. So I got to see many baseball games, and you know, this actually had to say is that this is a sad kind of a story too, because this is something about your mom, you know what I mean? And that's something like almost like a freak. Well, I wouldn't say a freak accident. Well, yeah, it can because it is, because
I did.
you just don't ever know. If anybody's ever been to a baseball game and has gotten really good seats or anywhere near the first base or third base line, even if you get a home run ball in the outfield, you know what I mean? The dangers of a ball coming at you, from leaving the bat could range from 98 to 100, I think 125 miles per hour. All depends on who the batter is. Um, so for me to hear some of the interviews you've done and hear the story was like mind blowing for me because you just never hear stuff like this. But you know, I would love you to hear how this day happened and everything. Like it's
Yeah, well, it's interesting, like you said, it is it was a 1 in 40,000 ball that night. My of all the people in the whole stadium, it found my mom that foul ball, deathly fatal foul ball. But the thing that shocked me was how many injuries were happening.
hmm,
Once I started diving into the story and doing some research, it was so many preventable injuries were happening, and it was heartbreaking. And you were saying going back to as a kid going to the games, I was a big Dodger fan growing up. We lived in the San Fernando Valley. It was an easy jaunt over there, and
hmm,
I'm older than you, so I was from the Steve Garvey, Ron Say, Davy Lopes. You knew every player was going to be there every game, and those times have changed. But
hmm.
even back then, Manny Mota, 1970, foul ball struck a 14-year-old boy and he died. So that's when something should have happened in 1970, and
Right.
nope, they just kind of covered it up and moved it on. So that's what I'd say. It's like it was a preventable death.
Hmm.
These nets could have been extended way earlier, not because children were getting caught on camera getting hurt.
Right. I mean, have you
So
ever
that's
seen?
that's I think that's what the hair that broke the camel's back or whatever was that these children were getting caught on camera, and then it became too awkward not to extend the netting to full expect.
And that's something that, like you said, when you see, I mean, I've been to games. I've numerous times tried to catch a foul ball or a home run ball. You know what I mean? Like I always bring my glove. You always see the young kids and the with the fathers bringing their gloves to the game. And I noticed as I was getting older, they didn't do that as much.
Hmm.
Then I've noticed. I mean, I'm 44. I will say my age, but I noticed in my early teens, my 10 years to like my early teens, I noticed that dads and kids are not bringing their gloves anymore to the game.
Hmm.
They try to catch their balls with their drink cups, the beer, the sodas. just
Yeah,
so they
that's
can get home.
just silly.
It is because if you miss, if you know, if you think about it, when people go around for a foul ball, how many people surround that person? You know,
Yeah, and well, in my mom's case, it happened so fast, that it was just like a shot, like a bullet.
mhm,
Nobody could react. It was that fast. And you're talking, I have to say that I believe that the home run balls are totally different because they're long, 350 feet. By the time they get there, they're already on the trajectory on like a down, it's
mhm,
like it's a little bit different than those rockets of the foul balls.
yeah,
So, those are understandably, you can see the ball coming, you can aim your mitt, you can actually catch it. But
mhm,
these foul balls have been like rockets and bullets and just coming out of nowhere. So, that was a shame of it, is that it was just, she was paying attention, she wasn't on her phone, it wasn't like she was being distracted. It was you could not dodge from that ball,
right. Especially when you're talking about a bullet, like the way you're,
a bullet. And
like
we're
the way
talking
you're
about
describing.
players. I mean, my dad always remarked, I mentioned in my book that who was the biggest player on the Padres roster, like a football player, 250-pound or more guy, huge. So the strength, the velocity, the pitcher, the ball, all the elements of, modern day baseball have, made it a little bit more dangerous for those balls.
That I agree. I mean, even when I remember before they put the fencing up in the dugout, how many times could a player get hurt? I mean,
Oh,
I mean, unfortunately, I feel like, and I'm not saying it's MLB, but any kind of game these days, like I know hockey has the nets, they try to be safe. Hockey is a real hard puck, so imagine a 100-mile-per-hour puck
yeah,
hitting
that
you.
that I heard that it only took one puck for that to happen.
Yeah,
One puck, and all of hockey just said, "Whoop, we need to fix this."
yeah, and they
That's the weird thing, is that there was hesitation, there was mulling over, there was weird. It's
yeah, I
not an
mean,
expensive investment. It could happen very quickly.
oh yeah.
That was strange to me.
I mean, but it's kind of funny. Everyone, complains, oh, you can't see through the nets. I've been to plenty of hockey games, especially at the Garden. I've been to the Prudential Center here in New Jersey, Garden in New York. And I'll tell you, the nets don't even bother. You're watching the game, you're not going to see the nets. You're going to
Oh
see
yeah, the first 30 seconds, and then your eyes adjust.
yeah.
You know,
So,
and I was lucky enough to sit in dugout seats way back, like I said, in the 80s. And those were the most expensive seats. They were behind the net back
yeah,
then. So how could people complain
I
about
mean,
the net? Yeah.
I would be excited to be honest with you. I never got seats that close. I've gotten 10 rows from first baseline, but I've never been behind the plate. I've never been behind the dugout ever. So for me, that would have been like a really expensive treat. But I'll tell you, it's just an amazing thing that it has to take, unfortunately, a death to write something. You know what I mean? It should have never happened. You said the first death of a child was 1970.
Yeah, 14-year-old boy.
So think about this: you're bringing your 14-year-old. It could be, and I will say it, not being sexist. It could be a boy. It could be a girl. It could be, it could be anybody who got hurt. So unfortunately, it was a boy in this one. But and then it was your mom, and your mom was later in the years. But how old were you when you went to the game with your mom to see this game? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, I wasn't even at this game. It was,
Oh,
yeah, this all came down the pipes from my father. My father had block seats, and he had him and his best friends were going every 10th game
okay,
for years. I mean, these are diehard fans. And my mom was 79 at the time, but she had been going to so many games. And my dad was a coach. My dad's a wrestling coach, so it's like
okay,
not like he's not paying attention. He knows everything about everything.
mhm,
And it was a fluke of all flukes, like you said. And this particular game, his best friends were ill, and they said, you know what, why don't you take the seats? And he invited his brother and sister-in-law. Of
oh,
all the games the whole entire year, he had his brother there with him to drive his car to the hospital after she got hit. He could ride in the ambulance. I mean, it was pretty miraculous. A lot of weird things were happening around her death. That, like, what are the odds that of that? I mean, the best friend would have gone to the hospital too,
Oh no,
but
I know.
to have your brother there with you during brain surgery at midnight, I mean, that was pretty amazing.
That is
So,
amazing. I mean, to go through what your father and his best friend's brother, I can't even fathom the emotions. I mean, your dad went your mom to right to the hospital right from the game, ambulance ride. I
yeah,
mean, I mean,
spooky.
I'm hoping again. I hope the that stadium, Dodger Stadium, hopefully they stopped and really think about what was going on. You know what I mean? Just not just the players, but everybody. You know what I mean? Like even the fans, like realizing what is going on.
Well, the scary thing, or not the scary thing, but the surprising thing is no one would have ever known if it wasn't for me speaking out. That's what I'm saying. It was just, this was a World Series run year. It was 2018,
Hmm.
exactly 5 years ago.
Yeah,
They were on their way to the World Series. They weren't announcing in this that anybody got hit and died from a foul ball. No
no,
way. So I was you'll see in my story, that's kind of like I probably finally wrote it down. People, every time, my mom wasn't sick or anything. So every time I bump into somebody and I said, "Oh, my mom died," they're like, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Yeah, she got hit by a foul ball at Dodger Stadium and died." And their mouth just falls open and says, "What are you talking about?" Is the first thing. Second, how come I never heard this? They always say that. And the third thing they'd say was, "What did the Dodgers do for you?"
that was going to be one of my later on questions. What did the
Well,
Dodgers help
everybody
to do?
asked those three things. How in the world did that happen? And why didn't I hear about it? And what did they do?
Well,
So the why
exactly.
I started questioning myself. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, how come you don't know about this?"
Right.
And so and so she died in August, and it wasn't until like November that I was over our grieving, a little bit, and
Mm.
I decided to start Googling. That's when I found an article by Willie Weinbaum, in ESPN saying, "Congratulations to baseball. They extended the netting all the way to the dugouts, past the dugout line. Isn't that great? Less people are getting injured. Only one person died in 1970." And
That's
so
not true.
read it, and it was the same year, 2018, that they extended the netting to the end of the dugouts. So I was like, well, how do I wrote them back just a quick blurb, and this is like the opening of my book. I'm saying, "Hey, my mom died in August. How do I get that statistic changed?" And
Right.
he, was on vacation at the time, wrote me right back, "What are you talking about? How come I didn't hear about this?" kind of thing. So it wasn't until a grieving daughter spoke out to say, "Listen, something happened and the world needs to know, because that's not okay. The fan safety is important. You don't hush this up, you
No,
know."
definitely not. I mean, I gotta give you kudos. I mean, after your grieving process to do what you're doing and raising, first of all, raising awareness of the nets and the injuries that people can't suffer, and also advocating for it. You know what I mean? Like truly attacking. I'm not gonna say attacking, but really trying to show MLB and all the owners of baseball teams to really, if it's not for the fans, who's it for?
Exactly.
It,
And the thing is, again, during my research, you'll see one of my chapters, it's all about the players. If
mhm,
the players get some comp seats and they notice their family are sitting in the hot zones, they move their families.
mhm,
They move them out of the danger zones. So if the players know there's danger zones, the MLB knows because people have died that there's danger zones, why don't the fans know? That's not fair, right? So
definitely not.
that's the title of my book. Sit behind the net. You're going to go to the game, support your favorite team, but when you look at the inventory, which you totally can now, it's like theater, you pick your seat, pick one behind the net and be safe, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm also I'm an outfield kind of guy. I like to watch the game from home, but yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm if I'm lucky to get seats and to to like especially Yankee Stadium, because like Dodger Stadium is like it's like legendary,
Mm,
especially when you're going to Dodger Stadium, Tommy Lasorda, For me, that's one reason I always loved the Dodgers. I always loved Tommy Lasorda. You know what I mean? He is a true baseball player and manager that I always admired when he was a Dodger. You know what I mean? He
I
really
agree.
he represented that team so well. And for me, I mean, living in the East Coast, it was always the Yankees. And Derek Jeter for me was my guy growing up.
Mm.
I'll never forget in '96 when he came onto the scene as a rookie to the show, and I just said he's a New Jersey guy. He's a New Yorker. He's this guy. And I remember I'll never forget how skinny and young he looked as a shortstop. You know what I mean? It, and then you see these plays, like you said, the Nets is one thing, but then you see players
Hmm.
diving, like Derek Jeter dove. I remember against I think it was one of the Boston Red Sox series, and I remember it was Alex Rodriguez was right there, but Jeter flew into the stands. What happens if you hit a kid?
Yeah, that's
What
another. I know. Yeah,
and
scary.
now and this is just me thinking about this as we're just talking.
Yeah.
Like this is why I'm an improv guy. I think on my feet a little bit, but
Well,
think
you know
about this.
what? I bet it's happened. I bet it's happened.
It
And the
has happened.
camera quickly moves away. The camera quickly moves away and they're on to the next thing. So it wasn't until okay, so I spoke out.
Hmm.
The journalists, like after ESPN, I got inundated by journalist interviews. Call everybody from Washington Post to the New York Times, even the like People magazine, the human interest stories. Like everybody was like, why don't we not know about this? So it took me to speak out. Then the journalists had it in their radar, right? So
Right.
then when these the children were getting hurt, I think there was a game. I'm terrible at statistics and it's in my script. I think it was Alberto Almora. He like fell to his knees. He visually saw the ball hit a child
I
with his
remember
own
that one.
eyes,
I remember that
with
game
his
actually.
own eyes, and he fell to the ground and he couldn't even bat. It's like you're talking about Jeter. It's like you should not have to go to the game to your own work, like thinking you're going to hurt somebody. Like you do
Yeah.
not want to go to work thinking you're going to hurt somebody.
No,
So,
no, definitely not,
the-
especially in that type of
so the players are very much affected too, and
yeah.
they were everybody was interviewed. Of course, I think the net should be extended. I don't want this ever happening again, and it still took months and months for it to happen. It
Yeah.
was so mysterious to me, especially in the light of PR and this and that and social media. Like the Dodgers could have been the first ones to say, "Oh, never again. We're going to be the first MLB to extend our nets and raise them behind the plate." And nope, they were not the
You
first.
would have thought that, especially happening at a home game versus the Padres, which is a very big rivalry
Hmm.
against the in MLB. I mean, Padres, Dodgers is like Yankees and Mets on the East
Yeah,
Coast.
yeah.
So I mean, that's a huge. It's kind of funny. I do have the hats sitting right next to each other. The Padres and LA Dodgers right next to each other. So it's kind of funny because it doesn't matter that you're right. They should have been the first MLB team. The LA Dodgers should have been the first one to actually say, forget this. The fan safety is important. We just wheeled out a 79 old year old lady who God knows what's going to happen to her.
Yeah.
That's
They
scary
could have
too.
spun the PR to be in their favor, but
They
they
could have, but
didn't.
they didn't. And that's
And to me,
something
that was
huge.
mysterious, very mysterious.
Now, your mom has the surgery, like you were saying, your mom went through surgery. Um, and then obviously we know what happens. You lost your mother to this, and now did the LA Dodgers ever reach out to you at all? Did the owner or the president of the team ever reached out to you for even just a condolence at least?
Well, you could see in my book that there was a little bit of interesting bit, but my sister's boyfriend at the time was her, did reach out to the Dodgers, but
Mhm.
we didn't know. We were just in ICU worrying about this brain bleed.
Yeah, the
That's
brain
she
bleed.
just pretty much was out in the ambulance. That was the last time she breathed on her own, and then it was blunt head injury. The blood just had nowhere to go, and she finally died.
Mhm.
But my sister's boyfriend unbeknownst to me and my dad, did contact MLB, I mean the Dodgers, and was in talking to somebody in the administration. I don't know, like giving them updates and such. So, um, again, I wasn't a part of it, and I didn't find this out until way later when I had a connection with the administration. And a friend of mine said, hey, reach out and see what they want, what they can do. Like, we just really, it wasn't about money. My dad's old school. He did believe it was an accident, but he was a long life fan. Like, wouldn't it be nice if they said, rest in peace, Linda Goldblum on the Jumbotron, or a
Yeah.
little gold plaque on the seat saying, long life, long baseball fan in memory of,
Yeah.
something like
In
just
memory.
closure, some
Yeah.
kind of nicety, because we were pissed at the Dodgers, especially I was on this World Series run. That's all I heard: Dodgers, 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 Dodgers.
Yeah, I
Thank
remember
God,
that.
thank goodness they lost to Boston. I was happy about that, but
As
it
a
was just in my face. Dodgers are so great, and I'm like, they're not so great.
Yeah, that was a
So
year. As a Yankee
yeah,
fan,
so
we didn't like it.
again, on the back of the ticket, it says enter at your own risk.
Yes.
So it's known that you're not allowed to sue. They are protected by the baseball law. It's and that kind of thing. So again, I mentioned there were some miraculous things in my story, and you'll see one of them was the lawyer who actually was a 14-year-old boy who knew Alan Fish, the
Oh
boy that
wow.
passed away. And so fast forward all these years, he's a grown-up man and he's a lawyer. And he's like, that was my friend that died. And I want to talk to the Dodgers now. Linda Goldblum should not have died. So he knew that there's no way we could sue the Dodgers, but he
Hmm.
still asked for some, presence with them, mediation, some kind of closure and that kind of thing. And he knew, he just said, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart because I was friends with Alan Fish and this should never have happened. So that was mysterious that we met this guy from the Valley where we
Right.
grew up, and he knew my sister's friend who was a lawyer, so all these interesting things kind of came about. And again, you can read in my book, it's we did meet with them, and it still wasn't great.
That's surprising. You know what I mean? Again, just not hearing that it was not great. That's something that I'm kind of surprised. You know what I
I
mean?
know, like they had another chance to make it nice.
They could have just done. I'm not saying, oh, here's season tickets. We're sorry, but I mean, like a plaque, or like you said, invite you to the game, have you sit behind home plate, but do something nice on the jumbotron. They could have
Something for my
it
dad,
that could have done something, yeah, for especially your dad. I mean, they could invite the whole family out for one game. You know what I
yeah.
mean? We do, like, I know MLB, NHL, NFL, MLS, all these NBA too. They always do something nice, and I love the fact that they always try to give to like the military, the garden, it was the New York Rangers, and it's the Garden of Dreams. But what about you? What about your family?
Yeah.
There's no real closure
I
right now.
truly believe the quieter the better. Like I said, the New York Times wrote a huge article on me. Washington Post, beautiful article. LA Times, this teeny little article in the corner. So that tells you something. They want to,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
but I mean, they make a big deal about steroids in baseball, and here we are, 2018, and you lose your mother because
Yeah.
of an
To something that could be preventable. I mean,
yeah.
again, I'm not alone in fan safety advocacy. I talk about in my book, Jordan Scott, way before me, he was doing this. He's
Mhm.
reaching out, and he offered. I think he's a New Yorker himself, which is he offered the both New York stadiums. He would pay the $50,000 and for the 4 days it took to extend the netting.
Right.
And they both said no. Like, that's all it took was $50,000 in 4 days at
Fifty
the
thousand
most.
dollars for them is like nothing.
That's like a flick of a flick of a flick of a penny of a cent, especially in a World Series money year. It's like it was miraculous to me that no one. No, it took so long for action to happen.
It
Okay,
took a
so the
little too longer.
commissioner said each ballpark has its own configuration. They're going to have to get analysis done and this and that. That's BS. You just said do it and they would have done it.
I think that was my next thing. Did the MLB commissioner at that time ever
No.
reach out to you or the family?
Well, that's another, in my book, you'll find a 5-page a letter that I wrote to the commissioner in a big manila envelope. I copied and pasted all kinds of outpouring from people I didn't know what they thought about the issue, and guess what? It came back unopened, return to sender.
Really? I mean,
And
that's,
that, okay, so I could have Googled the wrong floor, but MLB owns one ginormous building in New York. You know what I mean? It's
oh
like
yeah.
if it went to the mail room, you'd think they would know who the commissioner's office is if I got the suite number wrong. Something, you know what I mean?
No, I get it. No, well, that's the thing. Like for me, as as a podcaster, you know what I mean? You're trying to find the right people who to talk to and who to talk, you know what I mean? Just to get a bigger name. You know, I'm happy
Yeah,
what I do too, because this, as a little podcaster and probably one of the biggest networks that's not making money. I don't make money out of this. I don't ask
right.
for money. I do this because I love it. But I also do this because I want people like yourselves to have a voice. I mean, you've been on the, you've been on the ESPN. You did this. You've done that. I mean, you've done a lot of interviews. And again, I remember this story vaguely here in New York. That it's kind of funny that I'm actually talking to the daughter of the mother who passed away.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, it is important to get the word out, and that's why I am trying to reach as many people that were willing to talk to me because
Oh yeah.
okay, a fabulous thing happened. The nets did get extended at Dodger Stadium, and the netting did get raised higher where my mom was sitting. But guess what? MLB has not stepped up. The spring training has not stepped up. College parks are still unprotected. So that's what I'm saying. Like my journey is not quite ended. MLB did it, but minor league is still lagging. I think the commissioner gave him to 2025. I'm like 2 more years of injuries. Thanks. Like
Yeah.
why? I don't get that. So again, the title of my book: Sit Behind the Nets. Just take care of your family and be safe.
And that's something, I'm actually going to advocate actually tonight when we sign off, because I am going to mention that I had another wonderful, even tonight, another wonderful recording with you, you know what I mean? But I am going to mention the name of the book and why we're going to advocate. And I am going to hashtag MLB and the Dodgers on this,
Thank
because
you. Thank you.
people need to know, even hashtag the Yankees and the Mets, and just because I'm in the area, but the safety of family and kids, not even just kids, older people, older families, like you said, you had
Everybody. But
everybody, you
again,
just,
Alex, it wasn't until these children were getting hit that became too awkward not to do anything.
yeah,
The
it,
grandma, okay, maybe they let that slide, but when the children
still,
were getting hurt, and this is the thing I mentioned in my book. I am part of a group called Injured People from, MLB and MILB and
mhm.
Facebook. There's a whole community of injured people that just are so heartbroken, and they're all venting their stories, and because of the baseball law, they get zero compensation for their medical bills.
And that's something
And
that
it's
should change.
heartbreaking to me.
That should
So
change. I am definitely
that
going
should
to
change.
advocate this a little bit, because we can't listen. It doesn't matter if you're 5 years old or 90 years old, you get hit by something at a game. I remember, matter of fact, I still remember this vividly. There was a game I was watching. I forgot who was it against, and I remember the bat slipped out of the.
Mm.
Hey, not enough pine tar. You could see it, but when the baseball player's bat wailed, I think it was a little girl,
Oh,
and you see the TV cameras immediately. Oh my
oh,
God! And then they turn away because the hit was so vicious, like probably your mom's. You
yeah.
know what I mean? It was so vicious that the cameras, and all I hear is the announcer say, "God, I hope she's okay." But
Yeah.
that's it. Ever after that, you don't hear if she made a full recovery. I do know the baseball player that hit her, not on purpose, of the slipping of the bat. He went to the hospital to go visit her.
Nice.
You know what I mean? He did make attempt to say, "Hey, whatever you need, I'll help you." You know what I mean? That's the only good thing I could say, that the player
But
took
it shouldn't
responsibility.
really be the player's
No,
responsibility.
it should be the team and the
And we're
associations.
talking pennies. We're talking pennies for these billion-dollar corporations.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my dreams was to have, to advocate for a fund that would
Mm,
be like a teeny percentage of something, a half a percentage of the baseball player's salary or something, or the popcorn commission or something would go to this fund to help these people living with day-to-day chronic pain from these injuries. But of course, the lawyers all say, yeah, you open up a can of worms. If you help one person, you're going to have to open a million people. But if you fall at the grocery store has insurance and they help you.
mhm.
So the MLB, my dream would be to create a teeny little insurance that would help, God forbid, these people. And again, the numbers are going down. At one point, it was almost 1,400 injuries a year. That is so many. And these numbers have gone down because of the new netting.
Mhm.
But, again, the minor league parks, a lot of these injuries were at the minor league parks and they're still dangerous. And, like I said, spring training's gotten better too, but we just got to just make sure this doesn't happen again,
No, no,
and
without a
again,
doubt. It's again, it's so hard because to lose a mother that way is not, that's I can't even fathom what you've gone through with that and your family. Again, a lot of prayers to your family, even though it's many years later, but still, um, I gotta say that because I lost my dad 20 some odd years ago to cancer, but that's not even compared to what you just went through with the LA Dodgers, the MLB, not even doing much, or the Dodgers doing much. And one thing still respect the game, but the respect now a little bit just hearing this story today, it's a little bit different because, as much as I respect the major leaguers, the players, but the fact is that if no one went to go reach out to do something, that's sad. And that's
yeah.
something that I'm kind
Well,
of surprised.
my dad's pretty much sure about it, and he doesn't blame the players at all.
No, no, it's not
In
the players,
fact,
but
in
it's a team.
fact, in our story, my dad knows exactly who the player was, but they made ESPN retract the name with some doubt, so that player didn't have to worry about it. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So that, I mean, and my dad said that's fine. We don't need that player doesn't need to have that on his headache. But my dad knows who it was. He's like I said, he was an active
Yeah,
sports fan, knows everybody. He
yeah,
even
same thing with me.
commented to his brother that look at this guy, he's the biggest guy in the team. Like he knows who it was. But um it's not about, that. And again, these guys should not have to go to work having to worry. It's about MLB and the big organizations protecting their own fans.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not the players. I want to, the players are voting to, yes, extend the nets. Of course you should. I don't want to have anything happen to my family even. So it's pretty horrific. And again, the shock of it all, and then I got inundated, like I mentioned, with the journalism and all the sports. So I never really got a chance to mourn my mom because I was telling the story over and over, and
mhm.
I became really desensitized to it. And it's kind of a weird thing to even say. Yeah, my mom got hit by a foul ball and died, and I have to keep a straight face because it's so weird. But then after, the time passed and good things happened and nets got extended, and then it was like a year later, and I was telling someone the story, it was right at COVID. They're like, Jana, this is a book. You need to write this down.
Mm,
And so it wasn't until then that I actually got to mourn my mom and create this like legacy story for her, because she did not die in vain.
no,
Something good came of it. We got the nets extended. We got, this, hopefully more people are going to be protected in the future. And so the book was more my outpouring of the grief,
right.
talking about my mom and the story and my me going through it. So
Mhm.
it was kind of cathartic. And again, like you mentioned, it was horrific, but something did come from it in the end. And my COVID project was this, beautiful book that I can share with people, and they can know the story, and it's real. It's a real, real prayer for Owen Meany story.
Yeah, no, it definitely is because And kudos, first of all, to writing the book and kind of, I can't even think of how you wrote that book without not, thinking what happened and how it happened and everything, because it's a painful memory to live through. I mean, for me, just thinking about what you were just doing, sitting there and typing this story for a book, you know what I mean? I have to give you a lot of credit because that, even me sitting here talking to you and just thinking about it, I can't even picture not having a box or two of tissues and not crying every sentence that I'm writing about my mother or my father or my wife or my kids or my in-laws, you know what I mean, in that fact. So it's just one of those things that I have to tip my hat to you as a baseball fan, like the old MLB tip of the hat, but it's just, it's very difficult to hear this because you would think any MLB, any sports team would go out and help, because I remember going to a hockey game back in my day when I was young. My dad took me to my first Devils Rangers game, and it was in the old Continental, well, I should say Brendan Burns Arena before it became the Continental Arena, before they moved to the Prudential Center. And I remember watching the game, and we were in the higher tiers, you know what I mean? So we could watch the whole game because my dad got the tickets for free. And I remember saying to my dad, "Who's the ugly Christmas tree team?" And he goes, "That's the New Jersey Devils." I go, "I don't like them." And I remember seeing the Rangers. The Rangers had the red, white, and blue jerseys. And I said, I really love that team because of the colors, what it stands for. So, again, that's how I became a fan. But seeing that puck, this is before the Nets even were even thought of, but hearing how hard you're getting a frozen puck, and a guy like, say, Scott Stevens at that time, slap shotting at 97 miles per hour, that's going to do some real damage. And picture a ball, let's just say it was a 98 mile per hour fastball, hitting a 250-pound man with a bat, how quickly it could go from, like I said, 98 miles to 130 miles per hour straight bullet. Now, if anybody's doing their math right there, they know that that's instantaneously, like you said. There's not, it's a millisecond of what just happened.
Yeah.
You can't react. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to react into this. And I'm still today talking to you. I'm still, even though many years later, still in shock that happened to you and your family and your dad. And your dad
Yeah.
to witness the whole thing too. And your dad's best friend's brother to even witness it. That's so, I can't even put words to it because it's,
Well, I have to add one more miraculous thing. So my dad even took a photo that night.
oh,
So he doesn't know how to do selfies.
okay.
So I also like, you can see this is the last picture. It's on the back of
Oh yeah,
cover.
there it is.
And that's my uncle and my aunt and my mom. And that empty seat is my dad's seat. And they're wearing their Dodger blue. They're proud as heck. And it's like it was her, right around her birthday, and it was it was just weird. He took a picture of her that night. That was the last
That
picture.
night. That's the last picture you have with her smiling right
Yeah.
there, which is, it's always a good memory to see that every day. And I do have that book coming to me. Actually, I think I'm getting mine tomorrow. Um,
Yeah, you'll have to email me back and let me know
oh,
what you think, because it's
I
it's
definitely will.
it's 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 interesting. Like you said, how did I sit down and write it? But it kind of unfolded. I didn't have a storyline. I didn't have a chart that I
Mm,
followed. I just started writing, and then I did take some, it was COVID, so I took a class on how to write a memoir, and
okay.
found out this logistic. So I knew I had to get to 50,000 words. But so every so often I'd get to like 20,000, and then I'd say, okay, now what? What do I write about? And then something would happen in the news. Another kid would get hit. Some other something would happen. And now, oh, there's my next chapter. And so this story just kept coming and
So,
coming and coming. And you'll see there's even a chapter in the end about my daughter in New York
mhm.
at a professional theater, watching a Broadway show called Take Me Out,
Okay, I
which
remember that
deals
one.
with the same exact story of a guy getting hit and dying. And and there was a talk back that night, and my daughter raised her hand for the question, and they picked her, and all these weird things that
just
trying
happened.
to get the word out and ask people what they think and why the things weren't happening. And so the story that my book kept unfolding, it just kept going. And then in the very end, I did try to get a like a literary agent to take it and to make it a professional, published book.
Mhm.
And she passed, and she said it's too journalistic, it's too personal, it needs to be more documentarian. Like, well, that's not my style. I'm
Yeah.
so, but after she passed, I still had it in my possession and I was working on it. And that's when they announced, that the minor leagues are going to be doing their thing. Like there was just another announcement that I could add in the end. I'm like, okay, like it just kept unfolding. So hopefully you'll appreciate it and people
I
listening
for
will like it. And,
just
you
reading
know,
some of the cliff notes that I was able to get and listen to the interviews, I know I'm going to enjoy it because that's my type of reading. I will say that because I am more like personal. Like I write blogs, and like you, I just write and type. Well, I should say type. Like I typed my own personal little story about my football life, like how hard it was for being such an obese kid and becoming such a good player. You know what I mean? How the transformation happened. I wrote about that. I wrote about, it's kind of funny, the Atari 2600. Something, I loved my video games back in the day and still to this day. You know what I mean? So even watching the video game, you see these foul balls on a video game, you're just wondering what would it be like now, now that you think about it. So these little nuance, little things that you're talking about now as a father of two young children, it makes you wonder now, you know what I mean? So it makes you think a little bit more about safety. Matter of fact, I went to a basketball game with my two kids and my wife and some friends, and it was one of those Harlem Wizards, they called. They're like the
right.
Harlem Globetrotters. It's fun. It's fun for the kids. And you know what's funny is my son's 3 years old, and I didn't think about the headsets for him. And at one point, I see him doing this, and I'm just like, "Oh God, did I just damage this kid's ears?" Luckily, he's okay. But now that I'm thinking about it, like, I didn't think about the safety part. Neither did my wife. It was his second big event for him. We took him to Disney on Ice about a year and a half ago, and that was his first big event, and he was so happy. And then we didn't think about the noise.
Yeah.
So these, like you said, these little things like you do, you have, you're gonna learn. And I mean
I
tonight,
appreciate. I just like I said, I always even tell people you don't even have to read the book, just learn the title and
yeah,
sit behind the nets.
yeah, I
That's my message. Memoir with a message. Just do what you can to keep your family safe. And
will definitely will, and I am gonna definitely post this. I'm gonna mention tonight on Instagram. I'm gonna put it on Instagram, Twitter, my Facebook page. I'm gonna put it all over the place tonight and just say how great show, but also saying that these nets should be extended a little further, not
well,
just
they have, like I said, they have been in MLB.
yeah,
Minor league, they're not done, and spring training's not done. In college ball,
yeah.
I did a book club, and there was a woman in my book club who said her son played college baseball, and she saw two people get hit in college ball, like just because you're even tighter.
I even and just to top it off to even do it, I am going to put the LA Dodger hat, and I'm gonna hashtag them on this tonight. You know what I mean? Because I
Thank
think
you.
I think they need to know, and they they got even though it's a couple years later, 6, 7 years later,
Five, it's only
five
five.
5 years. So it's gonna I'm thinking 2007. My brain is mush, so I do apologize. So 5 years later, Dodgers are gonna have to do something to even though it's been twice and it's been bad, something's got to change. I get it. I get that the tickets say enter your own risk. I understand that, but I didn't sign a waiver to die.
Exactly.
So I mean
That's true.
that's something that, you know what? You're telling me if I have to sit behind the dugout, I gotta sign a waiver? That's a different story. They don't have a waiver. That could be another notch somewhere right there. You know what I mean? That, when you're selling these tickets at the first base, home plate line, even that area, enter your own risk. Be careful. You could get seriously injured. They don't say that on those tickets.
No way. And it's teeny, teeny. Well, even when it was a printed ticket,
Yeah,
it was teeny, teeny. Now it's online. It's probably buried on the fourth page of your
yeah.
ticket.
But the funny thing is
So,
that, but I mean,
but I
it's
am thankful that they've extended the inventory. See, that's
yeah,
what I'm saying. They did make some change.
yeah.
The inventory goes all the way to the foul poles now. So you
Yeah,
can
they
pick
do.
a seat in the cheaper section. You can pick a seat, but I still say pick the seat behind the net.
Without a doubt. Well, Janet, I gotta say, this was a really big eye opener tonight for me. I'm looking forward to getting the book in my hands. I am gonna read it, but I'm so happy to have you tonight. Um, I am gonna, like I said, I am gonna announce it. I'm gonna put it all over social media tonight.
Thank
Uh,
you, thank you. And I do have hashtags sit behind the nets.
I'm gonna do the hashtag. I'm hashtagging,
Yeah.
MLB, the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets.
Yeah, you just never know. You never know. And the reason why I printed that commissioner's letter in the book is like maybe somebody from that office will finally read it.
Oh, and I'll put a little something for the MLB commissioner on mine, on my hashtag, you know what I mean? But I will spread the word and I will advocate a little bit
Well,
for
that's
you.
amazing. And are you and a lot of podcasts are just doing good work and getting the word out and letting my voice be heard. That's the most important thing.
And
So
that's
thank
what I
you.
like, and this is what I love to do. And I gotta thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I know you're on the West Coast, so I know it's early. It's dinner time for you, near dinner time, and it's actually almost bedtime for me. But I gotta thank you for coming on. Before we leave, let everybody know where they can find you, the book, and uh,
Yeah, the book is on Amazon.com, and I just yesterday got it released on audio. So for the people that are not big on reading, you can listen to it. And I am just my name, Jana Brody, Brody.com, JanaBrody.com. You can, Alex, I'll post this podcast. I have a blog of all my podcasts and articles and information. You can also just Google Linda Goldblum, my mom, rest in peace, and 500,000 articles will come up. So that's amazing how much worldwide. And again, it's all in my book. And this story is a human interest story. It's for everybody. It's
mhm.
about grief and healing. Some people say, "Oh, it reminds me of my mom and my grandmom," but it is about just people who love baseball. So, anyways,
Oh,
thanks again for having me.
no problem. And like I say, guys, this is a true good story. I wish I had a happier ending, but things happen, and we're gonna spread the word no matter what on my side. I'm definitely gonna help out on that. And thank you again. And like I always end my show to everybody, I want to thank everybody. Good night, and it's nothing but love, peace, and happiness. Good night, everybody.